Hello there, Michelle Short here for My Favourite Things. Today I have a quick and easy holiday card to share with you that would be perfect for mass producing. So let's get started. This is the Cool Christmas Trees Dynamic set that I'll be using today, and it really is cool because you've got the base layer of the tree and then you've got different layers that you can add on top. You can also just use the triangle layers on their own to create trees. You've got different stumps, you've got little hearts, but I am just using the one tree for today. I've cut it from 5 colours of cardstock: Snow Cone, Summer Splash, Tropical Teal, Grape Jelly and Grapesicle, and I have cut each tree twice so that I can layer them on top of each other, and that's just going to give a little bit of stability to the card. Because these are pretty much the only thing apart from a sentiment that's actually on the card, I want to try and make them kind of as perfect as I possibly can. And when I was practicing this card, I sometimes do it when I'm making videos and sometimes I don't, but I did decide to do it for this card. And I found that when I was stacking some of the trees on top of each other and had like foam tape behind them, you can kind of see where I was layering the trees underneath, and I didn't really like that look. But if I doubled the cardstock layers, you couldn't really see that underneath, so that was quite nice. So I decided to do that, and I'm happy to kind of add the extra layer on. It only took a little bit of extra time just to layer these all one on top of each other, just the 2 layers for each of the trees. And it's great because I can use up my cardstock scraps as well because these trees are so tiny. So I'm going through all of the different colours here using On Point Precision Glue and then popping the other one on top. And I do just go around the outside edges with a nail just to try and remove any of the excess bits of cardstock that lay around when you're doing die cutting. I've then got an A2 size white card base here, and I wanted to add some interest on it, but nothing that would distract from the trees. I want this card to be really quite clean and simple, but I did just want some added extra detail onto the card base. So I'm using a scoring board here and a bone folder, and I'm scoring at every ½ inch. I quite like the uniformity of every ½ inch, but sometimes it's quite nice just to be completely random with it. Sometimes my bone folder actually kind of skips and then I end up messing up, and in which case I just style it out and do random lines anyway. But for this card I did just decide to do every ½ inch, and I'm just going over the lines twice so that I get a really nice deep impression with that scoring. And then when I fold it over here, you can see those really nice scored lines. It is difficult to see in photos, but in real life it does just add that added extra onto the card. So now I'm going to figure out where I want my trees to be on the card base, and I know that these 2 colours are going to be at the back, and I want to try and centre them as best as possible. So I like to layer them down first so that I can see where they're going to be before I stick them down. I'm then grabbing that On Point Precision Glue, and I can add a small amount of that onto the back of the trees. And then it was quite a cold day, and sometimes when it's cold I do struggle with my fingers to pick things up, so I apologise that you're seeing me struggle a little bit there, but I just picked up that tree and then I can just pop it down onto the card base. I'm trying not to press too hard at this point because I want to add the other one on and make sure that they're as centred as possible. And the great thing with using liquid glue is that you've got that kind of time to wiggle them about. So I can just add the purple one here on the right hand side. And then once I'm happy, I'm going to add an acrylic block over the top so that they can really stick down while the glue dries. While they're drying, I'm just going to bring in my other trees so that I can see where I think I want them to be and where I want to add the foam tape onto the back. So I'm using thin foam tape today. I like not having too much bulkiness, and I know that I'm going to post these cards. I am going to try and do mass producing with them. Now I'll be honest, when I say mass producing I mean like 5 of them. I don't really mean like hundreds of them. I'm never a big fan of like huge mass producing. So I tend to do maybe 5 of each design, and I quite like doing that. So for the trees that are on the left hand side and the right hand side, I'm adding a full layer of the thin foam tape, and then on either side where it overhangs the white card base, I'm doing 2 layers of that thin foam tape, just so that everything is kind of at the same level. So I can remove the backings off of that foam tape, and then I can press that down. And again, I'm just going to be really lightly here, just holding that down to try and keep it in place, but not press it down in case I need to move it, because I want to make sure that the one on the right hand side is going to look pretty much symmetrical. I think I got these 2 trees quite symmetrical, but the one in the middle wasn't quite right in the middle. I mean, to be honest, I might be the only one who have seen that, and you might not even see it on the video, but in real life I can see that it's not quite centered, but I don't think a huge amount of people would notice it. So I can just remove the backing off of that middle tree, and then I can just place that down in the middle, and I'm just going to add it a little bit lower than the other trees just for some added interest. So again, I can press that lightly, and then I can just push everything down, make sure everything's well stuck down. I'm then going to take a sentiment from the Itty Bitty Holiday stamp set, and I'm just going to use a sentiment that says Merry Christmas, but there are loads of different sentiments in that set. It's one of my favourites. I'm going to stamp it down onto some black licorice cardstock. So I'm picking that up with the Mini Misty Door. I can prep the cardstock with an anti-static powder tool and remove the excess powder with a brush. I'm then inking up the stamp with Versamark ink, which is a clear sticky ink, so that when I add the embossing powder on top, it's going to stick to it. Making sure not to press down too hard on the Misty, because that sentiment is absolutely tiny. I don't want to distort the letters. So I've applied some detail white embossing powder, and then I'm going to heat set that until it's completely melted. Trying not to overheat that powder. I'm then going to let it cool down for a little while and then remove any excess powder with a cloth. I'm then taking the Itty Bitty Strips Dynamics. I'm going to place it over the sentiment, hold it down with some low tack tape and run that through my die cutting machine. And then I can just cut off the excess from either side. So I'm just placing my sentiment down onto my card so that I can see where I want it to be placed, but I want to figure out where I want all the foam tape to be on the back, and I need to have different layers of the foam tape because of the different layers of the trees. So where the tree is in the middle, I just need 1 layer of foam tape, but where there's a gap between the tree in the middle and the tree on the right or the tree on the left, I do want 2 layers of foam tape because that is lower down. So again, I'm using the thin foam tape here because even having a few layers of it, it doesn't tend to be too bulky, which I really like, and especially good for mailing cards. So I've just cut small pieces of that foam tape down. I've stuck them to my finger, as you can see, and I'm just placing them down onto the back of the sentiment strip. So I've kept it in place so that I can make sure that the foam tape is going to be where I want it to be. And then on either side, I'm just adding a little bit more of the On Point Precision Glue, where that's going to overhang the tree on the right and the left. I'm then bringing in my T-square ruler just to make sure that I place that down on straight. And I'm just using some tweezers there just to help me place that down. And then to finish off the card, I did want to add a little bit of sparkle because generally Christmas cards for me have to have a little bit of sparkle on them. So I'm taking some silver gems. These are absolutely tiny. And again, I was struggling a little bit picking them up. So I'm just placing 2 down on kind of like the right side and the left side. And then I'm going to pop 1 at the top. And like I said, this just gives a little bit of added sparkle. You could definitely kind of enhance the card even more with some splatter and some like sprays of kind of like shimmery goodness and things like that. But I really wanted to keep this quite clean and simple. And I really love that colour combination. It's very non-traditional, but I do really like how it turned out. And the card in general, very, very clean and simple. Perfect for mass producing though, and also really good for mailing as well. Links to the products that I used will be listed in the description bar on YouTube. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.